Okay, we continue in Sefer Shmuel Aleph. We are now on Perek Hay. The Jews have lost a terrible defeat at the hands of the Plishtim. Many people were killed. Chafni and Pinchas die. The Aron is taken. Eli dies. Eli's daughter-in-law dies. Names the child Ikavod. And we move now, the next two chapters, Hay and Vav, will deal with the ark in captivity in the hands of the Plishtim. And we'll see how God responds to all this. Perek Hay, Pasuk Aleph. U'Plishtim lochu eis Aron Elokim. And the Plishtim took the ark of Hashem, v'yiviuhu me'even ha'ezer Ashdod. And they took it from Even ha'ezer, the Philistine city of Ashdod. Okay, Pasuk Beis. And when they were in Ashdod, Vayichu Plishtim es Aron Elokim, and the Plishtim took the ark of Hashem, v'yaviu also beis Dagon, and they took it to the house of Dagon. Dagon was the name of their idol. So it was the house of their idol, their idol house. And they stood up, they set up the Aron HaKodesh next to Dagon. Now the Radak explains a little bit later on that Dagon was sort of like a male mermaid, where it had human features, part human features, and part fish features. It had a fish part, because the bottom was like a fish, and the top had a head, and had arms like a human being. That's what Dagon was. Now, you remember, Ashdod is a port city, and we already said that the Plishtim were seafarers. They were sailors. So obviously they wanted to have such an idol. The idol would reflect the ocean, the sea, and their human aspect, which we'll discuss a little bit later on, perhaps some ideas about that. But the question is, why did they put the ark over there? So the Malbim brings down a machlokes in the Gemara. There's a machlokes, two different opinions, Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan says that they were giving kavod to the Aron. They were giving Aron. They were giving it honor, because it's a Jewish God. It's a Jewish God. It's a Jewish God. It's fitting to be next to the Philistine God. That's one opinion. I'm sorry, that was Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says they honored it. This is a God. This is a God. Reish Lakish says, is this the honor? Or rather, so why did they get punished? We're going to see in a minute the Plishtim get punished. So if they were honoring the ark, why should they get punished? It says rather they were dishonoring the Aron, and they're saying this is the victor, this is the vanquished, put the vanquished next to the victim. Trying to show that the ark wasn't special at all. So, therefore, so it's a machlokes, but it makes more sense to say the second shot, of course, as the Malbim brings both pshatim down, and says because we know the Philistines didn't have any love for the Jewish people, and certainly not for their God either. So maybe they gave it some respect. So it could be both pshatim too. We're going to respect this God, but it's a lower God than our God. We don't put it in the garbage dump because it is a God and it has certain powers. But our God is stronger, so we'll put it subservient to our God next to our God. Okay, so Hashem really didn't like that. So Pasuk Gimel. So they put it in the house of idol worship to go to sleep, and the next morning, Vayashkimu Ashdodi mimachros, the people from Ashdod get up the next morning. Vinei Dagon nofel lefanav arza lifnei Aron Hashem. And behold, an amazing thing happened. The idol of Dagon fell before the ark, and the Malbim explains it was like a double miracle. Now you figure if you have let's say there's the door, and here's the Dagon, and here's the ark. So if the Dagon would fall, let's say it was just a tremor, right? A little earthquake. So if the Dagon would fall, how would it fall? Fall forward on its face and facing the door. So a typical, fall would be like this. But what they saw is that the Dagon was azoi. It was facing towards the ark, and not backwards, but up. It's face up. So it's like the double opposite of what a typical, rather, it would fall, or if it was, let's say, falling to the ark, but it was totally reversed, meaning as if to say it was like almost bowing down to the ark. Okay, that's how the Malbim explains it. He says that they were both standing opposite the door. If it would fall just from a mikra, from a happening, so it would fall on its face and it would fall towards the door, not towards the ark. And so that's one thing. And also, if it was falling towards the ark, it would probably fall on its side. Let's say even if you want to say it fell there, it would fall this way. But it wasn't even to the ark. It was like totally the other way, facing as if it was positioned in another place even beforehand. So therefore, that was an amazing double-barrel miracle there. And obviously, it didn't fall by itself. It must have been a miracle. They should have already done Shul immediately. So what do? They act as if nothing happened. They took Dagon, they put it back in its place. That's odd. But they don't react. So Hashem always gives you a little warning. Dalet. They get up the next morning, second morning. Again, Dagon falls before the Ark of Hashem in a miraculous way, but now more. For Rosh Dagon, now the head of Dagon, Ushtei Kapol Shedav, and its two hands, Krusas al Mifton, were chopped off by the threshold. Rak Dagon Nishar Alov, and the only one that's left is Dagon. In other words, they now see that Dagon was at the threshold. Again, another miracle. Again, it fell in a similar way as the day before, turned totally around and facing the Mishkan. That was miracle one, double miracle one. And the second miracle is that the head and the hands are cut off by the doorpost, not by the Aron, as if to maybe make it think that maybe the Aron had a fight with Dagon and beat up Dagon and chopped Dagon to bits, so the hands were next to the Aron, but rather at quite a distance, right? And then, so the body parts were by the threshold, but the fish part was further up, falling down before the ark. So it was in two parts. I say the threshold is here, the ark is here, the body parts are here, and the fish part is facing over here. It's an amazing double miracle. Okay. So you figure that by now they for sure should make some kind of reaction. So let's see what their reaction is. So, they're ready to make some kind of reaction, but not the kind we would have liked to have seen. Plus, okay, Al Kain, therefore, because of that amazing thing, Lo Yidruchu Choa Negoin Dagon Cholaboim Beis Dagon Al Mifton Dagon VaAshdod Ad Hayom Hazeh. Therefore, the priests of Dagon, and for that matter, anybody else who goes to Dagon, nobody walks over the threshold of the house of Dagon in Ashdod until today. So why is that so? So Ralbag says in Pasuk Daled, because they felt that the threshold itself must be holy, because they found the head and the hands on the threshold. Must be something holy about it if it's over there. Well, the Malbim gives a different interpretation. They figure there must have been a third god involved over here. The third god is the god of the threshold. The god of the threshold. And that's why Dagon's body parts were on the threshold. So you see how far their idol-worshipping natures would stretch things, anything but not to admit that it's Hashem. Right? To say it was Hashem? No way. So that, of course, obviously, you already had two warnings. and they totally don't heed the warnings at all. And this obviously gets Hashem quite upset. And the balance of the parak will tell us all the punishments he now will give to the Plishtim. So before we go on with this chapter, there's a very nice piece from Rabbi Tzadok that we can look at that I think will be quite instructive. Rabbi Tzadok discusses something not related to this, but we can connect it to it. We're talking about the ark. You're going to see some similarities. What's going on with the ark? What's going on with the Plishtim and the Yidden? And why the ark is taken into captivity. What's the significance of the ark taken into captivity? So you have to know a little bit about the ark, and we'll understand this a little bit better. Okay, so this Rabbi Tzadok is in Sefer Pri Tzadik. That's his Sefer on the different parshios. It's on Parshas Truma that deals with the Mishkan and the utensils. Os Ches. So it says in the pasuk there, "V'tzipisa osa zahav tahor mibayis mechutz titzpena." We know the ark had 3 compartments of the walls. There was when you looked at the box from the outside, it was gold. If you looked at the box from the inside, it was gold. But the gold on the outside and the inside was covering up what was in the middle? Wood. What kind of wood? What was it called in Hebrew? Atzei Shitim. Shitim wood. Okay. So, Pirish Rashi explains, Gimel Aronos Asa B'Tzalel. B'Tzalel made 3 boxes, a box within a box within a box. Shnaim shel zov, echad shel eitz. 2 of gold and 1 of wood. V'kachel b'Gemara, that's based on the Gemara. V'Ra'im, in the Mizrahi commentary on Rashi, Hevi, he brings Shetama Harav Even Ezer, he brings a question from the Even Ezer. Da'acha she'asa aron zov, once you're making the ark out of gold, mat tzarech leitz, what do you need the wood for? Just make the whole thing gold. Finished. Hilarious, that reminds you of the Parsha class we did a number of months ago, the one that you were very fascinated with. So we're coming back to this. Right? And because the shar kelim and karashim, all the other utensils and the beams, shahayu shal eitz, that were made out of wood, hoyurak metzupim zav, they were just coated with gold. Okay, so gold plated is one thing. Mashiach Aron, but the ark, Aron Zav, it was really gold. According to one rabbi in the Gemara, Ovev Tefach, it was thick a Tefach, this thick. That's a lot of gold. So what do you need the tree, the wood for it all? So we gave a different interpretation at that alternative class. But the Tzadok says an amazingly different shot. But the concept as we find in the Medrash Tanchuma, it says B'mizbeach shenaseh me'atzei shitim, that the altar was made from wood of shitim. Why? Why that type of wood? Shitim was that? I think cedar wood. I'm not exactly sure what kind of wood it is. You could check. Acacia wood. I wouldn't know the difference. But a specific kind of wood. But it's called shitim. Okay, does the word shitim ring a bell to anybody? It's a city. What happened at that city? It's not that long ago. We had it in the Parsha. It was 2 weeks ago. It was the end of Parshas Balak. The Jewish people came to Shittim, and that's when the Midianite and Moabite women seduced the men. And 24,000 men were seduced and did the worshipping of the Baal Peor. It was a very low point of the Jewish travelings. Right? And that's what Parshas Pinchas is it follows up. And Pinchas stood up against that. So Shittim, if you recall, that's also when Yoshua sent spies out to the land. He sent it from Shittim as a tikkun for the Avera. And now this is what the Medrash says. Well, so now you'll remember Shittim. Okay, the Medrash says the Mizbeach Shenase Matzah Shittim. The Mizbeach, the altar, was also made out of Shittim wood. The Yavo Atzi Shittim Yechaperu Al Shtusan. Let the Shittim is from the same root of the word Shtus, which is foolishness. And obviously it has to do with the Shtus, that would, different Shtuyot that happened to Jewish people. When they built the ark, it was before the story of Shittim, but obviously Shittim represents the ultimate of a Shtus, the ultimate foolishness. It's for a man to want to be with a Midianite woman and to worship their idols. That's the ultimate foolishness. And that's what the Mizbeach is all about. The Mizbeach is primarily for kapara, for atonement. What do we need atonement for? We need atonement for the shtuyot, the silliness, the foolishness of what we do. So Gemara says, "My loshen shitim," etc. What does it mean? The expression of shitim? She's asking with divrei shtus. They engage themselves in issues of foolishness. Behind the That's what the Gemara Sota says. No one does an aver unless a spirit of foolishness comes over them, as it says by the Esha Sota, the woman who goes away from the path of her husband, says ish ki sista isha, that his wife is sista, she goes off the path, she acts foolishly. So now what does an avera have to do with foolishness? So now Reb Tzadok explains beautifully. He says, the inyan atayvu be'emes shtus. Anybody who runs after taiva, anyone who runs after base pleasures, drives and lusts, it truly is foolish. Why? Vitipshus, also a very strong word for foolishness, idiocy. Why? Shudavar mos, because it's a disgusting thing. The Gemara says, Isha chamas mole. A woman looks after a man chasing after him. What's a woman? From an anatomical level, it's a piece of flesh. Blood, guts. Chop up a woman into bits. What do you got? Not much different than a man. What's there to lust after? Like, what is it already? Right? Merely flesh and blood and guts. Right? And this is what you get so excited about? Right? Because a woman is amazing, but if you just look at the physical things, like physical is like so nothing. I want to say spiritual. Oh, Eishes Chayil. It's a different story, but that's not what people don't lust after an Eishes Chayil. Usually not. Can't imagine people lusting after, very frumpy looking Beis Yaakov girls. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're lusting after people that look attractive, where there's a lot of flesh for you to lust after. So what's there to lust from flesh? Flesh is just bones and blood and guts. Right? We love this person. Let's look inside what's in her. Let's see if you can imagine. You say, you really love me? What's inside here? I'll cut myself up. Go. Get lustful over the organs that are spewing forth all over. That's what you're lusting for? You're lusting over the packaging, the nice ribbons. But essentially, what's a human being? Physically, just physically. Right? That's what it's saying. V'udavar nit'av u'mezuham. It's a disgusting, repulsive thing. V'hachote misa'ev atzmo b'shvil milu taivosa rega echod. And the sinner, he has a drive. He wants so much. What? To fulfill the pleasures of a moment. How long is the pleasure for already? Is this years and years of pleasure? It's eternal bliss. A minute. And what happens? Umafsid tov olam haba, and you're losing your whole eternity for that. A person's running after a beautiful woman they shouldn't be running after. So how long is the pleasure going to be already? One night. What do you get for that? You lose your whole olam haba. There can't be anything more foolish than that. Giving up eternal existence for an ephemeral pleasure. It's crazy. Ubishitim kilkalu b'ma'aseh pa'or, and it was in Shittim itself where they wrecked themselves up by worshiping that idol for pa'or. It's like the dumbest thing you could do. Okay, do you understand why an Avera is such a foolish thing to do? What do you get out of an Avera at the end of the day? So let's say you have a taiva to take revenge on somebody. So you get the revenge. So you the sweet, cold taste of revenge. How long does it last? How long, when they're going to, next Sunday night, when one country will celebrate the winning of a World Cup, how long will that celebration last? How long can it go? A day, two? They get drunk, kill a few people, rob, mob, loot. Okay, so finally, to finally sober up after 2-3 days, then what? There's no more games to watch. It's all over. So, that's what's all. So it's a foolish thing, and to sin in order to do it as well. So that's V'zel inyan aron atzei shitim. This is the idea of the ark that's made out of the shitim wood. Shemarames neged yetzer hara, because it's hinting to the yetzer hara. Which one? The taiva of taiva. There's a yetzer hara. There's different yetzer haras, and the most base yetzer hara is you just go after your lusts. Sh'amar the Gemara says, Shemitzkara b'talmud chacham yoser mikula. We are told, is a principle of the Talmud. Kol hagodol mechavero yitzra godol himenu. Someone who is greater than his friend, he has a greater yetzer hara. And it's based on a Gemara in Sukkah where it says that the truth of the matter is the yetzer hara for lust. Who does it run after more than anyone else? Believe it or not, it runs after a Torah scholar. Runs after a Torah scholar. Now, and now this can begin to explain, of course not to justify, but it can explain why you could occasionally find great Torah scholars fall in terrible, terrible averos. It's not the rule, but it's possible. How could it be? How could, yes, unfortunately, mises where rabbinical figures get involved in very unpleasant activities. It's based on a rule. As we continue, Kol hagodol mechaver yitzul godol himenu. If you're bigger than someone else, you have a bigger yetzer hara. On the simple level, we say it's because you have to have an equal playing field. If a great person doesn't have a yetzer hara, then there's no challenge. There's got to be big challenges. Now, Lahavin, now he's going to give you the deeper understanding. It's a beautiful piece. Lahavin lama miskara yoser b'talmud chacham. Why does the yetzer hara, fight more with the Talmud chacham? Ubagadol yeh yitzer gadol. And why does a big person have a bigger yetzer hara? He says, "Achen kvar amarnu." We already explained the yetzer. What is the whole purpose of the yetzer hara? What's the real purpose of yetzer hara? Now, of course, yetzer hara is trying to tempt us to doing bad things, but obviously, everything God creates has to be able to be used in a positive way. How can you use the yetzer hara in a positive way? How can you this drive? Now, let's take lust and let's boil it down to the least common denominator. Let's strip away the lust for what it's lusting for, but let's just look at the power of lust. Just the pure, raw power of lust is what? A power of what? What is it? What?
Desire.
It's a desire, but what kind of desire?
Physical.
For pleasure.
For pleasure. It's a desire for pleasure and the effort one will exert for getting that pleasure. So in a very negative way, I'll give a very negative example. A man sees a beautiful married woman and he wants this woman, but she is happily married to her husband. He's going to have to work very hard to sway her away from her man to come to him. And it could take a lot of effort. It not always comes easy to get your pleasures. Person wants to have certain taivas, wealth. You got to work very hard, put in 70-hour weeks to make the money, to close the business deals, to now be able to buy your private island in the Bahamas for that pleasure. Right? So, taiva requires, a drive of conquest, a drive of, because you just can't sit back and just the pleasures come. You got to make some work to get. You got to work to get the pleasure. most pleasures don't come by you sitting around and doing nothing. Sleeping is not a taiva. Just sitting, not getting up, that's not a taiva. That's just I'm lazy. It's not slowness. It's not taiva. Taiva is your blood pressure is higher. Your heart is beating. I've got to have this. I must have this. Right? You're going to drive 50 miles to go to an exotic restaurant. While you could have a meal right in the house. Why do you have to drive far away why do you have to go all the way down to Eglinton to spend over $100 to have a meal when you could have a nice steak dinner at home? Will cost you a quarter the price. But it's the effort. You have to make. It's the effort to take some pleasure that's far away from you and to conquer it and to make it part of you. Now, that's true. Now, what's the greatest pleasure? The greatest pleasure is being close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, how do you access that greatest pleasure? We already discussed this past Shabbos. It's through Asek HaTorah. Asek HaTorah, working hard on Torah. So that's what God gave you a Yetzer Hara for. To sublimate it for the ultimate. Understanding a piece of Gemara is not easy. But if you want it, if you have a drive for it, figure the drive that people have for Averos and just use that drive in a strong way to learn Torah. Do you know what kind of scholar you could be? So we had a Rebbe once said, if you would try as hard in Gemara as you did in baseball, you'd be a Talmud Chacham. Right? You can't learn. Torah is hard to learn. It's not easy. You look at it, you want to forget it. So you have to have a drive. You have that drive, that cheshek. So that's what it says. The Yetzer Hainu cheshek. The Yetzer is a cheshek. A cheshek, how do you translate? Yearning, a real wanting drive. K'mo she'omar, as the Pasuk says, Yetzer machshavos levav amecha. Shashem Yisbarach baras adam b'Yetzer. Hashem created every human being with a Yetzer. Shemeshuka ba'inyan chemda. That it's deeply sunk in the person, the concept of desire. Every human being has the ability to want something badly. That's time. Now, that's cheshek, that's Yetzer. When it's done wrong, then it becomes taiva. But v'habechira, it's in the underlines. V'habechira nesuna la'adam lahachnis hachemda l'kedusha o lahepech chas v'chalila. And your free will choice is given to you to decide which direction do you want to steer that desire. For holiness or for the opposite, God forbid. And like by the Mabul, for example, Shekilkalu, where they were destructive, it says, V'chol Yetzer machshavos libo rak kol hayom. It says that the Yetzer, the drive of the thoughts of the hearts of man at that time by the door Hamabul was only bad all day long. They used the power of cheshek and desire only for bad to fulfill their taivas. That's why Hashem had to destroy them. Then he skips. We're going to skip a little bit. It's a long piece. And the next line, you don't have to understand it, so it's a bit mystical, but we'll just get into the next part. Masha'eke klipis Yishmael, which is not the case with the shell of Yishmael. Sheyetzer hara the taiva, which is also Yetzer of taiva. Isa b'zar kadosh. We're going to say, we'll see later. The Zohar says about Yishmael, so yispat l'gamri. It wasn't totally nullified. Rak the nikra love, and it's called white. Command the sachi umatmil mishuvasei, like someone who goes to the mikveh to get away from his disgustingness. Fine. V'amar dilnul Yetzer hara. Here's the point we need now. And the Gemara says, the Zohar says, if not for the Yetzer hara, chedvasa deshmaitza lo lahavi, the joy of learning Torah would not exist. You'd never enjoy learning Torah if you didn't have taiva, if you didn't have a Yetzer. This is the goal of the Yetzer hara. The real point of the Yetzer is cheshek v'chamido daraisa. You have a yearning and a chamida, a chemda, a yearning for Torah.
It's like an unsatisfied desire?
That's right, exactly. That's a better translation, Howard. An unsatiable desire for pleasure. And we know that's true. Talmud says, he who has 100 wants 200. Who has 200 wants 400. The more you have, the more you need. That's the way it is with physical pleasures. As someone told me, the new what do you call it, comment, the new line they say, that people, I said it before, people are bored to debt. Not bored to death, bored to debt. They're so bored, they have to come up with something new to do. They'll borrow money to be able to have the next fantasy becoming realized, and it puts them into debt. I think that might be one of the Rosh Hashanah drushes. I think that might resonate. Right? Bored to debt. D-E-B-T. Because you're not happy. What you have a house already, a 2-car garage, air conditioning, a nice backyard, a swimming pool in the backyard, right? You still have to go to the Bahamas. Why? What's the problem here? You got a pool, you got air conditioning, you got everything you want. It's comfortable. You have a 4,000 square foot home. No. We have to go to the cottage too. Why? I understood. 100 years ago there was no air conditioning. You remember schwitzing. Okay, you go to the cottage, a few degrees cooler. You need to relax. I understand. But our houses are cottages. They're nicer than cottages. Right?
Cottages are nicer than
Cottages are houses.
What?
The cottages are houses.
Okay, but you understand what I'm saying. But I'm saying, but you need more. It doesn't stop. So that seems, wow, God, you're really cruel to give us such a desire. No! Hashem wants you to believe you can finish Shas. I can finish it. What do you mean? I finished 1 page. It's not enough 1 page. It's not enough 1 page. There's 2,500 pages out there. I can't be satisfied with 1 page. I have to have it all. That's the guy who's going to be a scholar. And that's what God put into man. And that's what Gemara says. Vashomer Gemara. In if this disgusting Yetzer comes to you and says, hey man, let's have a little party. Schlep him into the study hall. Meaning to say, pull those drives, and turn those drives of mundane base pleasure into the pleasure of studying Torah. Now we understand the last set of underlines. Then we can understand Hagodol mechavero, someone who's greater than his friend. Mitzat sheshakua bo chamida deraisa beyoser. Why are you greater than your friend? Because you have a strong yearning for Torah. Meaning to say, as we learned in the Balatanya, there are bigger neshamas and smaller neshamas. What do you mean? If you have a big neshama, it means you have big drives. Big drives. And thank God he's been sublimating it for Torah. But it's a big drive. What if that big drive gets a little bit off course? The Zelu Mazel Salakim, and Hashem has made one force juxtaposed to another. Therefore there's a strong yearning to the other side. As opposed to someone who doesn't grow the yearning for Torah. He doesn't have that much drive negatively in the other direction as well. That's why great people could do great Averos. Because they have big Yetzers. Thank God they're using the same way. But imagine if a Torah scholar would just decide to start taking lots of vacations and would stop learning Torah. That Yetzer is going to look somewhere else. That's why they have a bigger Yetzer Hara. They could do much worse Averos than your regular Amoritz, as it were. The fact that they are a scholar means that they do love learning, and they've activated that Yetzer in a very powerful way. So it could go the other way. So let's bring it back to the ark. That's what it means when we say the ark is made of the wood of Shittim. It's like, what do you call it? What do you call that term when it's two terms that contradict each other? It's a fancy... who? Oxymoron. It's an oxymoron. Because the tree hints to the Torah, it's called the tree of life, but Vishitim meramas al hepech, Vishitim hints to the opposite. Mitzat the gol hagodol mechaver yisagodol, because anyone who's greater than his friend has a bigger Yetzer Hara. So it's Atse, the tree of life, but Shitim can bring Shitim shtus, foolishness. Val Yedei Eitz Chaim the Torah, but if we use the Eitz Chaim of the Torah, Misgaber al Yisro, it overcomes the Yetzer Hara. V'kovei shinyan Shitim, and it conquers the aspect of Shitim. Shuromas of the Shtus Hanisker, which hints to the Shtus, the silliness that we've talked before. So there's the duality that exists in life. You want to be Shtus, silly, go after your pleasures, that's what Shitim is. you want to be smart and use that power and that drive for Torah, that's what the H. And that's what the Aron is supposed to symbolize. The Aron is the Ark, the Holy Torah. And later on it's going to say, when Mashiach comes, there's going to be a spring coming from House Hashem, and that's going to change the waters of Nachal Shittim. Remember, the Shittim waters was Viagra-like waters. And that water will change into being Torah waters. The Nachal Shittim, we know about that Nachal Shittim, that valley of Shittim. It says in the Medrash, the Shalznus Haya. It was one that brought immorality. The Hamayin Garm Lamaisa Hashtusim, that water brought the silly actions. Well, also in the future, when Israel become made white, the Taiva, that's that idea, the Taiva becomes purified. Coming to rise. Go back to where it was supposed to be, a yearning for Torah. Then that Nachal will turn to become a spring from the house of Hashem, to bring the yearning for Torah and Hashem. So now we understand the answer. Why it's gold on the inside, gold on the outside. And why do you need wood on the inside? Who needs the wood? It says, and the two arcs of gold, the two inside and outside. The Gemara says it hints to Talmud Chacham, that his outside should be like his inside. It says in the Gemara Yuma. How does that happen though? If you learn Torah with a complete heart, in and out, because you want to cleave to Hashem. If that's the case, if you want that, you can overcome that yetzer of the shittim that's inside. To bring it to the place of holiness that Hashem will help you. So it's a beautiful, beautiful idea that the Rabbi Tzadok is telling us here. Saying the whole idea of the ark the Jewish people have is to know that the goal is to have gold on the inside, gold on the outside. You got to be pure. Outside of your activities have to be pure, but it's got to come from a sincerity on the inside. But what is really in the middle, the critical point, is the Atzei Shittim. Is that drive for Taiva? Is it going to be a drive used for Torah? Then the gold on the inside and the outside will be beautiful. If it's not, it could be destructive. It could be destructive. The same people who can be great scholars can be the worst immoral people in the world as well. So therefore, and you find in the secular world as well, many of the great philosophers were big polyavers. Because they had a cheshek. They used their cheshek to know more about philosophy, this and that. But that cheshek can go into terrible places as well. So the main point of this Reb Tzadok is that you have to make sure the Aron alludes to us using our tavos l'shem shamayim. Use our drives for the sake of heaven. That's what the Ark is reminding us. So what did the Jewish people mistakenly do? They are Chafni and Pinchas, whatever interpretation you want to use, they are called immoral people, on whatever level we've learned in the past. So what do? They like their lifestyle, their pleasurable lifestyle, not focused that much to Hashem as it should be in the right way. So what do? They take the Aron itself into battle, so they will win their battle, so they continue to have their taivas. Hashem wasn't happy with that at all. So Hashem takes it away from you. Shows that you're not even close to what the Aron represents. Okay, so now let's bring it back to the Plishtim and Dagon. We did not forget about Dagon at all. So now, which creature on the planet best represents the idea of ta'ava, the idea of lust? Having more and more and more and more. It's a fish.
Oh, okay.
It's a fish. How do you know it's a fish? Because what's the blessing that Yaakov gave to his two grandsons? V'yidgu larov b'kerev haaretz. You should multiply in the midst of the land like fish. Fish multiply a lot. They're very engaged in expanding themselves. Right? In other words, that whole idea of multiplying, expanding more and more and more. Right? So they were created to be fruitful, and they did as they were told. In other words, this whole idea of taiva can be used in a very positive way. Right? In other words, fish represent taiva in a holy way. The whole idea of being fruitful, multiply, what images are conjured up in one's mind. It's got to be intimacy. Fruitful multiply, you got lots of taiva involved in fruitful multiply. The fish is the quintessential pruruvu. Have lots of fish, right? But the fish did it the way they're supposed to do it. They did it as the command of Hashem. To ultimately become, to have lots of fish, so they'll have what to eat. That's what they do as they're told. Now that's good. That's good. You can understand how the Plishtim, they were seafarers. They're out to expand, to have more. The whole idea of us being a seafarer means I'm a Baal Taiva. That's why pirates were not known to be the most moral people in the world. Why do you have to go out to the sea? Don't you have everything you have on dry land? What do you get by going to the Orient? I'm giving an example, like going far away. Things you can't get over here. You're missing things over here. What don't you have? You don't have nice wheat from the plains of Edmonton, Regina. And there's no bread, none of bread in Canada. Feltzachos bread. Exotic things, fireworks, whatever. That only can get that in China. The whole idea of going and getting silk, all these things, it's more taiva. You go on a boat. You're going on a boat to risk your life. It's the most dangerous form of travel. What are you doing it for? Hey, your mama's risking your life. What? For a taiva. It is the pshat that the Philistines, the seafarers, were starving to death. They have to go across the ocean to bring food back. That's never the case. Want to make more money. Want to be able to have more. That's the whole idea of a seafarer. The Plishtim, you understand how the Plishtim were on the coast? Because they weren't happy enough with what Eretz Yisrael doesn't have enough brachas. What? The spies came back and showed you gigantic fruits. If you live there, what do you need anything else? No, we have to go somewhere else to find other things. Right? They took that, so the Plishtim took their taivas and just expanded for no real purpose. So therefore, it's very interesting how their idol is what? A fish on the one hand, in human form. This is the deeper pshat in a mermaid. The deeper pshat in a mermaid is, give me that fish-like tendency to be fruitful, multiply, to expand and grow, and take that taiva, but take that taiva what? For a man's base pleasures. And this was what the Philistine idol was all about, and that's what represented its lifestyle, no different than today. And that's why everybody likes the Palestinians, you understand? It's not just a coincidence. They have to, similars like each other. Okay? So the bottom part of doggone, so now which part is Hashem going to destroy? Right? The bottom part, or the part of the doggone, the fish part's okay. Because the taiva of the fish alone, that's alright. But not tied to the person. Because when the person is using it to develop his own self-aggrandizement, that's terrible. So therefore, what did the Aron do? It broke the head and it broke the hands, because that's the part that wants to selfishly take those pleasures for its lustful wants. And that part is smashed on the threshold. Threshold symbolic of what? What's the threshold symbolic of? The point of free choice. The threshold is where you decide does something go in, does something not go in. So I have a mezuzah. We have a mezuzah to make sure that we make the right choice. What goes into the house, what doesn't go into the house. Plishtim, Hashem says, right at that threshold, you have to make those decisions. Those hands and those face, you've been making the wrong decisions. Leave it over there. Right? The man part's on the threshold. On the other hand, the fish part, that could be in front of the Aron. That part's acceptable. Right? And that becomes old. And we know the Plishtim were big Bali Taiva, as we saw with Shimshon. What do they do when they got Shimshon tied up in the Colosseum over there? They have all their wives being with Shimshon to have beautiful kids. Even though they hated Shimshon, but they loved his looks. Can you imagine somebody you hate, you still want to have a kid that looks like him? That's how far the taiva went. Plishtim are quit. So now the Jews, see what's going to have to happen here is the ark's going to have to, is gone now. We failed totally. This is like the final denouement of that generation of the Shoftim that couldn't bridle the taiva in the right way. So now you've lost the ark. You totally failed. When that ark's going to come back, that's going to symbolize the return of the proper use of taiva as should be done. And finally, Chazal say the idea of a threshold. Chazal say a person should make himself humble as a threshold, that he should be stepped on. If a person would be humble, then you would use your taivas in the right way. So this is the perfect punishment for the Plishtim, perfect punishment for the Jews. And tomorrow we will see exactly the complete level, and they should have got the message. That's the point. If they would have picked up the message, and they were smart enough people, the policemen were smart people, they'd pick up the message and do some tshuva. Unfortunately for them, they don't, and tomorrow you'll see the havoc they'll be wreaked upon them. Have a good one.